Hey, this is Jason Bradley from the Community Solutions Podcast. And before we start today's podcast, I just want to take a moment and talk to you because we are neck deep in election season and people are getting their campaigns into full swing. And we wouldn't have it any other way than having you out there in the community meeting your neighbors and growing Team 20K. You know what, though? Some of you out there I know could use a little extra bump, whether that's some strategy, whether that's learning how to read a comprehensive annual financial report, whether that is understanding your city's comprehensive plan. We're here for you. So get a hold of us, and we would love to sit down for a consulting session with you. Nobody else in Minnesota does this at the local level. All you got to do is reach out to us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That is commsolutionsmn@gmail.com, and we will sure make your campaign competitive. All right, enough of my yapping, and back to the show. You're as cold as ice. You're willing to sacrifice our love. You never take advice. Someday you'll pay the price. I know. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter, back for yet another fantastic episode.
Okay, now here's another situation where I very, very much know the song. I don't know who sings it.
Okay.
Give me a hint.
How about Ellis Island?
Ellis Island. Is that a New York reference or something?
No, it's not.
All right, try hint number 2. That didn't help. Starts with no.
How about Build the Wall? Oh.
Blanking.
The band is Foreigner.
Foreigner.
Yeah.
Oh, gee, how could I forget Foreigner?
Yeah,
But I did know the song.
You did.
I was mumbling it with you while you were off on your musical excellence.
Yeah.
As
Well,
opening the show as you always do with a song that I can't identify.
that's all right. For those of you that can or can't identify them and would like to play along, every week I do quote some lyrics that have something to do with something in the podcast at the beginning of the podcast, and then if you go out to our Spotify songs from the podcast playlist, you're able to listen to all the great rock and roll that I throw up there every week. So, way to give back to the bands that meant something to me growing up, but also just a little something fun. Make our podcast interactive.
Yes, and also you're right. When you hear the song, when we get into our subject matters with an S this week, it will all come back to you usually as to why. Sometimes even I don't get it until the end, but we do link it together.
Yes, it's true. At some point, you'll hear us talk about it. So, wow, it's fall almost. It
is. It's a little bit nipply out there.
It is depressing.
You think so?
Yeah.
Fall's depressing?
I don't mind fall, but I know winter's right around the corner. And
I like a little nip in the air.
I'm a summer guy.
Yeah, I suppose. But
fall means, fishing rods are going away soon. It means
bringing in the dock used to be my least favorite day of the year.
Oh, yeah, that's terrible.
I don't go up to the lake and help with that anymore. My other cousins can take care of it now. Yeah, that is depressing. We used to always do it when I was a kid. We'd go up north that weekend that the Thursday and Friday the kids always have off. Those DFL MEA or whatever it is, and that was always the first weekend of the World Series.
Yeah.
So that was when we always pulled the dock in, was that weekend.
Wow.
So we let it go until mid to late October, but then it was time to, the hunting stuff was out and all that. So, that's just the way things were done. With the way they're still done.
Yeah.
It's pretty much still the same timetable.
Yeah, that's true. It's inevitable. It gets cold, and Doc's got to be out of the water, and
I'll tell you what,
boat engine has to be drained.
That's true. That's a horrible job.
Yeah.
The older I get, too, Jay, I can tell you this much: the more time really does fly by. I mean, when I think about my childhood, and I think about how it seemed like 100 years. It took 100 years to grow up, and then. I turned 21 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute. There's no way that at 21 I lived about half of what I've lived, because it feels like since 1998 was like 5 years ago.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of what it feels like. So it is amazing, the older you get, how fast the time flies. I mean, you're hanging on to every moment.
Yeah.
So it's kind of... it's just, I don't know if I'm going through a midlife thing or what.
Maybe that's it.
I could be.
Yeah.
Because I've just been thinking recently about, there's some things, I was telling my wife, some things that we got to do now or we're just never going to get them done. And usually when a man talks like that, they're coming to grips with their own mortality. So maybe I'm just finally realizing the average American man lives to be 74, which means I've lived 57% of my life, give or take.
With medical advances, you're going to
but I hate doctors.
You're going to be alive for another 50 years. It'll be
but I don't like doctors. They're not going to pry me. Nobody's going to stick anything. I've had a colonoscopy. Nobody's sticking anything up my ass again.
Oh, boy.
So, I mean, there are just some things, I just try to avoid. So we'll see how long I last. But much to do in the meantime. Much to do in the meantime.
Yes.
The work is never done. Now, Jay, I know you watched some of this. I just have to mention this at the beginning of the program here.
Okay.
These Kavanaugh hearings of Judge Brett Kavanaugh. But I tell you what, I wouldn't trade places with him for all the gold at Fort Knox. I mean, you knew this was coming. You knew how stupid the left would act. But it is worse than I even thought. And these hearings have been a joke. This whole process is a disservice to our republic. I mean, first off, let me back up a second. The courts shouldn't wield the power that they wield.
No.
I mean, let's talk about. I mean, let's just state that right now.
I mean, they're an equal branch of government with the legislative and the executive, and
but they've morphed into having the final say on every legislation. 30 states can pass constitutional amendments banning gay marriage, following the process that's laid out that was in their constitution, and the Supreme 9 lawyers in robes can come by and say, no, we don't like that. It's gone.
I mean, it's really just supposed to be a check on the legislative and the executive branches to uphold the Constitution as it was written, and then the check upon the Supreme Court is supposed to be the ability to recall a judge that is stepping out of line, and we don't do.
No.
Not that you want to go down that road, because anytime you start to go down a road like that, it seems like Democrats take it to the nth degree, and
they're going to recall everybody every time they get a majority.
Exactly.
And the recall on every decision they disagree with. And here's the other thing. And I lectured people on the right about this and got a lot of blowback. But I said, look, when Republican attorney generals tried to sue the federal government over Obamacare, in the courts, I said that is not the right thing to do. The right thing to do is win elections, repeal and replace. Funny, we've done that, yet we haven't repealed and replaced like we said we would.
Right.
But the wrong thing to do was use the courts to go and now you can make the argument, okay, it's unconstitutional. Okay, I get that, but ultimately the power in the 9th and 10th Amendments, it lies with the people in the states, not in a bunch of courtrooms with people arguing.
Right. So, I mean, if that's the case, then we should not only get rid of Obamacare, we should overturn Roe versus Wade. We should overturn.
Just name the case.
Number,
any case in the last 50 years, pretty much.
Right. I mean, anything that is not what is laid out as the powers.
Kelo case.
Yeah, the Kelo case should be thrown out. There has been so much law.
Yeah, you can't even go down the list of
it. That has gone through the Supreme Court. And, you can't even begin to list all of it. I mean, there are certain things where you look at, like Brown versus Board of Education. There is a Department of Education, but I mean, really, should that have been left to the states, because education is supposed to be handled at a local level, but yet you had this bigger issue, and it's.
You had the bigger issue, and technically it overturning a previous.
Right. The Dred Scott.
The Plessy-Ferguson case.
Ferguson, yeah, sorry.
I mean, overturning that, which, was a precedent that had been about 60 years that had been around by then.
Yeah, and that was a terrible decision.
I agree. Separate but equal is a total joke. It was a justification for segregation.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it was.
Right.
Let's just be honest. But there are cases like there was the case when they rejected the first income tax. An income tax was part of a tariff bill.
Mm-hmm.
President Cleveland, at the time, considered vetoing it, decided to let it become law without his signature. The time period of the pocket veto didn't elapse yet. But the Supreme Court came in and struck that down and said that the Constitution did not grant the federal government the power to impose a direct tax.
Right.
So, of course, that's when the progressives started their income tax movement in the 1890s.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so, I mean, you've seen good cases where they have, I don't want to say interpreted the law, but looked at the Constitution as,
right.
Okay, does the federal government have the authority to do this, yes or no? We're not arguing whether it's good or bad.
Right.
Or whether we ideologically like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, to me, the role the courts were envisioned to fill.
Right. And with that case, I mean, income tax and, whether the federal government has the authority to charge an income tax, I think that's within their purview. But a lot of these other things that, it's not laid out for them in the Constitution, they have no business.
No business even hearing the case.
I guess though, and this is where maybe I disagree with it a little bit, is if their ruling was going to be, I'm sorry, that's a violation of the 9th and or 10th Amendment, it needs to be figured out in the states. Maybe I could make a case for that, but making a case on whether something is good or bad, follows the Constitution or not follows the Constitution, but you're omitting the 9th and the 10th Amendments. If that is the case, yes, the 9th and 10th apply to this, or it doesn't. That's a different argument, I think.
True, and I think that's an important point, that if Roe v. Wade were overturned, for example, it doesn't necessarily make abortion illegal. It returns that authority to the people in the states where it was prior to 1973.
Right.
So there's a lot of misconception about there that if something gets overturned, all of a sudden something's illegal. No, it returns the power back to the lawmaking branches,
mm-hmm.
which are supposed to make the laws anyhow.
Right.
So, yeah, look, I just find the whole thing a joke. You got to love Amy Klobuchar, though, don't you? I mean,
yeah. She's something.
I remember when, first off, I think the Democrats have concluded they can't stop Kavanaugh. Okay?
Yeah.
They're not going to stop this.
Right.
And the court's going to go to the right. I mean, Kavanaugh is pretty right. And they've got an axe to grind with Kavanaugh. I mean, he worked for Ken Starr.
Yeah.
He was President Bush's personal, before Harriet Miers.
Right.
He had investigated Vince Foster's death. I mean, this guy goes back. He's only 53 years old, which in Supreme Court years means he's 30.
Right.
Okay? Because, you got Ruth Ginsburg getting an IV while falling asleep during arguments. So, he's going to go in. And the Democrats aren't even challenging whether he's qualified. You can't make the case that he lacks the credentials. I mean, that's impossible to do.
Right.
So they're just trying to delegitimize him or I think they're making fools of themselves. But I love Klobuchar's line when I was on Twitter live when President Trump. I had been following who he was going to nominate, and Kavanaugh was like one of like the four people, or some people thought it was going to be this lady. I can't think of her name.
Right.
I think she was on the short list too. And within 5 minutes of this, Trump was still talking.
Right.
With Kavanaugh, with his family. He's got a young family, a kind of fairly young family. Klobuchar puts out a tweet. Oh, I'm not voting for this guy. Blah blah. He said blah 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 blah. Just ripping on him for a tweet. Then, right before the hearing starts, she claims that the hearings need to be delayed because she needs to look at some document or this document or that document. I'm thinking, if you've already concluded you're not voting for him, why do you need to see document A, document B, and document C? And furthermore, they're not entitled to see anything that happened when he was President Bush's lawyer. I mean, Jay, if you were my lawyer, nobody could publicly look at our communications under any circumstances. If they did, you'd be disbarred.
Yeah.
So they are not entitled to anything. They just want to find something. They're fishing for something. I mean, it's on the one hand, it's hilarious. On the other hand, a lifetime appointment to a body like this has become a circus. And I think that says something about our country and about how political this process is of appointing judges.
Yeah, it is. It has gotten way out of hand, and it's no longer about is somebody do they meet the mark. It has become completely about what are your politics, and it shouldn't be that way.
Well,
are you qualified to interpret the Constitution?
Yeah, and I'll tell you even a step further. And boy, you lefties listening to this show are not going to want to hear this, but when President Trump gets reelected, okay, because he's going to get reelected. I don't care what the Democrats think right now. His approval rating's probably 10 points higher than it's being shown right now because he polls low.
Right.
He always polls low. No poll had him up 9 in Ohio. No poll had him winning Wisconsin.
Yeah.
He polls lower than he gets. And I think there's a lot of people who maybe don't like him personally, but like the job he's doing. Some people don't.
A lot of that.
Some people don't like his tweets and kind of wince at him, but think he's doing. There's Trump is a little bit of an enigma. However, I'm going to make this call right here that he serves 8 years.
Yeah.
He will have the most Supreme Court appointments maybe ever.
That's true. I mean, he's going to get at least 2 more, and maybe even one of them will still be this term.
I see him getting 3 because
really?
I don't think
Breyer and Ginsburg.
I don't think Clarence Thomas will serve the whole time. He's 71 now. I think he may hang on, but if you replace Thomas with a Thomas who's 25 years younger, you've still tilted the court because the way the court is right now, I mean, I'll give you an example. Sonia Sotomayor is older than John Roberts.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got the 2 oldest. Stephen Breyer is 80.
Yeah.
And Ruth Ginsburg is 85.
Right.
And whether they'll even be alive by 2024 or not, I mean, they're the next 2 to go.
They are.
Logically. So,
I mean, barring anything unforeseen.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I certainly don't wish death on them or anything.
No. But
I can't see them both serving the rest of Trump's, assuming he serves 2 terms.
But you got to imagine the pressure on them is pretty high.
It is, but you know what?
But it's their life. It's like,
if
they want to have a retirement, let them have a retirement.
They only work 6 months out of the year. It ain't the worst gig.
It's not the worst gig.
But, it's interesting. I mean, I think Kavanaugh replacing Kennedy is definitely a right tilt.
Yeah.
So, and then, you look at the other, nobody else is over 65.
Right.
Other than Thomas. So you've got a much Neil Gorsuch is only 51. Kavanaugh himself is just 53. So you're going to have a interesting court going forward. And I think you're going to see a much more originalist construction of the Constitution. But keep watching these jokes of hearings. I mean,
but And if I can make an appeal to the conservatives out there, and I know that we have talked about how important it is to get involved with the local level of elections, but this is why it is important for you to get out there and vote. I mean, there are polls against. I don't know if I trust the polls that are out there, but where Democrats are more interested in this election than Republicans are interested in this election. And I don't know if that's true, but if you're a conservative, Trump is going to get at least 2 more Supreme Court picks if in the eventuality that he gets reelected.
Well, and I can tell you that I know people who were not Trump's biggest fans who voted for him because of that reason. Because
exactly
they didn't want to see Antonin Scalia.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to see a guy like Neil Gorsuch succeed him and not some lefty. And that played a big, you knew there was one appointment. Mm-hmm. You knew Kennedy was, 82? I mean, you knew there were 3 very aging Supreme Court justices. And I think that played a role in some people who were maybe iffy on Trump ending up voting for him.
And that's my point. You guys got to get out there and vote this election, because if we lose control of the legislative branch, that is going to make the job of having an originalist on the Supreme Court a lot tougher.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And we have a chance to be able to make this a solid
court for a generation.
Government for a generation.
Yeah. Well, I think the Senate will stay in Republican hands. I think there's just too many Democrats up. I think it'll be interesting to see if Joe Manchin and Claire McCaskill and people like that end up voting for Judge Kavanaugh. Because if the Republican votes hold, they can't stop it. So what's their incentive to vote for Chuck Schumer? That's a commercial for their opponent.
Yeah.
So, I think he'll get in. I think he'll get more votes than people think. But ultimately, I think the clown show will go on for a couple of more weeks.
Right.
So, anyhow.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, ain't that fun?
Today on the program, I mean, that was fun. We are going to move, oddly, from a federal thing to
back to our comfort zone.
Back to our comfort zone. And we talk about local stuff all the time, and a lot of times we'll get into the groups that are doing things, or we'll get into things like budgets or comprehensive plans. Today, we are giving you nothing but the local lowdown.
Yeah, kind of a little, not a lightning round of local news, but kind of we're picking from 3, 4, or 5 different places to give you some stories.
Right. And if you're not from these places, it really doesn't matter, because as you're going to see, there are similar things going on in a lot of the same places. And so you need to be aware of what to look for.
And pretty much everything we're going to talk about today, we've talked about in the past.
Exactly. Different city, same stuff. And so
right. Groundhog Day all over Minnesota.
It is so important that you understand the issues, because these things circulate from city to city, and one person passes it, and then you have the next city take a look at it. And this is your chance to get informed on the issues that are affecting us across the state and be able to get ahead of it. Because as we said couple episodes ago, you can fight City Hall. You just have to know when to get involved in the process. So, we have a whole basket of stuff here, Andrew. Where should we start? Let's start up in Sherburne County.
Sherburne County we'll start in. Old Sherburne County.
We just had our friend Paul on the show a couple episodes ago, and he talked about there's things that are going on in Sherburne County. He is running for county commissioner up in District 2, Big Lake Township. And there's an issue with a local sales tax, a countywide sales tax that they want to implement. In fact, I think Paul touched on it when he was here. Why don't we talk about it, and then we'll talk about what they did. Sure.
Well, they want to put in a transportation tax, right? That they eliminated their tax for North Star, which they've been paying a little bit on since 2005, I think, and implement a sales tax for transportation. Now, of course, transportation is a broad thing. The Minnesota legislature, this is courtesy of your DFLers, gave counties the authority to establish a local sales tax for up to 0.5%, which would be 50 cents on every $100 spent, to be used to be implemented on a sales tax for a countywide sales tax. So that's in addition to your state sales tax, which I think is 6.8%, Jay, somewhere around there statewide, 6.7.
Yeah, something like that.
I want to say it's somewhere in there. It doesn't really matter, but that's in the ballpark. The funds can be used for payment of capital costs of a specific transportation project or improvement. This is from state statute 297A.99. Wonder how many state statutes we have. I mean, it's just got to be crazy.
Too many.
Yeah. Whatever it is, it's too many. Payment of costs, which include both capital and operating costs of a specific transit project or improvement, and payment of capital costs of safe routes to school under section state statute 174.40, and the payment of transit operating costs. Now that's where North Star comes in.
Yes,
for Sherburne County. So you're not paying it anymore.
Right.
You're going to pay it out of a different, instead of your front pocket, it'll be your back pocket.
Right. Well, or maybe flip flop, because under the old system, there was money coming in from all over the state. This is going to be specifically for Sherburne County. I think some of the numbers are a little odd, to say the least, that they're thinking with a half of a percent of total taxable of a sales tax here. They think the total proceeds is going to be $3.2 million and change
annually,
and Sherburne County residents will pay over $2.3 million of that annually. But they think that non-residents are going to pay $924,000 plus.
Well, I'd like to know how that's quantified. I mean, every purchase in the county, they know who's paying it.
Yeah, apparently.
We all got microchips like that. I mean, that's pretty questionable. Again, that sounds like a sales pitch to me, and not really. But $3.2 million annually.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of dough.
That is a lot of dough.
County officials, we're getting this from hometownsource.com, by the way. County officials say there is a gap between current funding levels and needed improvements. Well, again, for their long-term transportation plan, the gap between 2023 and 2024 totals $13.4 million per year. Now, Jay, do you believe that?
That's insane.
I mean, first off, remember, this is county.
Right.
Okay, so you got to back up a second. This is not highways. This is not city streets. This is county only.
Right.
Now, how many county roads are there in Sherburne County? I mean, we're not talking about Hennepin here, okay? We're talking about Elk River, Becker, Big Lake. What am I missing? The Highway 10 is from Elk River to St. Cloud, basically, is Sherburne County.
Yeah, pretty much. There's some other cities.
Clear Lake.
Yeah, that's probably in there.
But you're telling me there's a $13.4 million gap?
Yeah. Becker, Big Lake, Clear Lake, Elk River, Princeton, St. Cloud, Zimmerman.
Well, St. Cloud mostly is not in.
Yeah.
It's mostly Stearns County, I think.
Well, yeah, it's partly in Stearns.
Benton, maybe, too?
Yeah, Benton as well.
Yeah, I think St. Cloud's kind of divided.
It is. That's just according to this.
Still, how many county roads are in St. Cloud? I mean, there can't be that many from one of the three counties. I mean, we all know what's going to happen. They're going to take this money. They're going to spend it on bike paths. They're going to spend it on transit. They're going to spend it on complete streets, on roundabouts, on all this crap that is not needed.
I think a lot of the streets, roads, highways, whatever, out in the townships. I mean, you've got your state highways, but I think there's a lot of county roads out in townships as well. And there are a number of those.
There could be, whether the townships, I mean, county road's a county road.
Right.
Most townships probably have one or two of them. I mean, I don't know how many there are, but there's a lot of townships. There's quite a few in
there's 10.
Yeah, in Sherburne County. But boy, you better take a relook at that long-range plans. Current revenue is estimated at $244 million, and the needs are estimated at $472 million. Now, if that's the case, you're not very good stewards of our money here, Sherburne County. I mean, if you're that far off, why is it? By the way, here's another beautiful thing about this article here. The plan, if commissioners authorize the sales tax, is to notify the commissioner of revenue by September 31st. Well, I don't think that date exists, so that'll be. Yeah.
Wow.
And you can go up to half a cent, but I mean, do you have to? Keep in mind, it's a regressive tax too. I mean, this is a tax that lower and middle income people, they'll be the ones who pay most of it. So
absolutely,
so much for the little guy.
Absolutely, anytime you go, I'm not sure on this. Does this follow the same rules as like a state income tax where food isn't taxed and certain clothing items aren't taxed?
Yes, I think they have to follow. They can't do that on whatever the state doesn't tax. I'm pretty certain is not sales tax based.
Okay.
So I don't think they can. The clothing, I don't think so either. But still, I mean, it's going to tax everything else. Basically, food, clothing, and gas. What else is not taxed? I mean,
right.
It's pretty much everything. So, it'll hit everybody in your conservative county out there in Sherburne County.
Well, enjoy that because at least you're not paying the other tax anymore, and then
you're paying a larger one now.
Right.
So Sherburne County, this is the thing, never open up a revenue stream to government. I mean, this is basically this will be an indefinite thing that'll never ever go away.
Absolutely.
As soon as they get money, they're not going to want to give it up. So hooray for Sherburne County. Non-residents are going to give me a break.
Why don't we stay in Sherburne County here for a moment, and let's take a look at Elk River, who also is looking at putting in a sales tax, a local sales tax. So they're looking at Plan B. That's not.
Well, Plan B, we're not talking about statutory cities here.
No.
We're talking about if their local sales tax referendum. So, I mean, Elk River is in Sherburne County.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to add a sales tax on top of that.
Right. So you're going to get 0.5% coming out of Sherburne County, and then you're going to have this one, which they're looking to raise $17 million. And we talked about this a little bit before, but they want to dredge Lake Orono and put up a $16 million arena. So $17 million of that is going to come through a property tax hike if Plan B is approved, and they want $35 million to come from a local option sales tax referendum.
Well, here's the thing.
Or if that doesn't pass, that $17 million will come from property tax hikes.
Right. Ultimately, they're going to borrow for this.
Right.
Ultimately, that's
for
what's
the discrepancy between 35 and 17.
Basically, what they're saying is we're going to do this.
Yep.
We don't care if you vote the sales tax up or down.
Right.
Okay, we're just going to do it anyway. You're just going to tell us how you're going to pay for it.
Yep. That sounds familiar.
Yeah. It certainly does.
Like the Met Council.
New Hope, maybe, whatever.
Maybe. We're doing it. You're going to tell us how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if the referendum does not pass, then they are going to just do a huge tax hike and pass everything anyway. So I don't know what the point is of having this on the ballot anymore. It is kind of, I don't know if you want to call it useless. I don't know, but citizens of Elk River are going to take it in the yin yang here.
I guess the only benefit to the sales tax is that, again, you might have people come through from outside of Elk River to help contribute a little bit. If you can call that looking on the bright side.
You got to be pretty, you really got to look at the bright side to think of that.
Yeah. Only an optimist is going to come up with that, because it's pretty depressing. I mean, and this is the thing. I mean, they want to have this $35 million project, which we talked about before, and it includes dredging the lake, all this reconstruction around the lake with parking lots and things like that. The whole the center over there, the ice arena, henceforth the song today, the senior center at Lions Parks, and they're talking about, though, how they favor having restrooms at Elk River's major parks and running water at the youth athletic complex and at Orono Park. So they don't have running water at the athletic complex.
Well, I think
that's a choice.
Well, who knows? I think the other thing that strikes me is here we're talking about all this stuff about local government, but it's not police, it's not fire, it's not roads, it's not parks, it's not the things that they normally work on here. This is all amenities. This is all obviously, it's also stuff they have not prepared for financially,
right?
Because they don't have $17 million laying around. They're going to have to raise it. They're going to have to bond it. They're going to have to pay off those bonds. And again, what's the total cost of that? This total cost is not $17 million. It's not $35 million. It's something north of that.
Right.
So they're already lying to us in the beginning here. I mean, a sales tax is not going to get you millions of dollars overnight. It'll get you millions of dollars over a long period of time. And, of course, that tax will stay with us and stay with us and stay with us. So it's, pretty questionable, I think.
Yeah, it is, And so they want to be able to raise all of this money. And if it doesn't pass, I guess what they're saying here is that $17 million is as much as they would be willing to spend, and the rest of the stuff would have to wait. But you raise the property taxes once you pay for the initial investment, if we can call it that. That tax isn't going to go away. I mean, they're going to then use that to do the rest of the stuff.
What tax ever goes away? Name me a tax that's ever gone away. They may go down, they may go up, but how many taxes go away?
None of them.
Yeah, I can't think of any off the top of my head either. So, I mean, maybe there was one somewhere, I mean, ultimately, it's sick to see, a city council basically hold its citizens hostage and say, we've made a decision that we're doing this. You can reject this if you want to, but we really don't care.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to take the rejection as a no. We're going to take it as we'll fund it another way. Heads I win, tails you lose.
It's true.
So,
well, and these are supposedly really conservative places, but yet they're raising taxes like gangbusters. And it just goes to prove what we've talked about all along, that just because a place is conservative and votes conservatively at the state level, at the federal level, they really don't have a clue what's going on at the local level. I mean, we see it here, Sherburne County, Elk River, out in Big Lake. Also, I was down in Cottage Grove recently, and I just posted something to our Instagram account, that this big old rock that says meadow grass, a public park, and open space. Well, open space is code word used by radical environmentalists. That's just to kind of speak to their own so that they know what's going on. You want to have a public park, that's great, but you're using the terminology that you're joining the club, whether that's Green Step or whatever. And they also out in Cottage Grove, I noticed, have only one garbage hauler. So
out in CD2?
Yeah.
I mean, that happens out there?
Yeah. Quite conservative ideals, I'll tell you.
Probably have franchise fees and everything else out there. No shock. I mean, I'm certainly not shocked.
Oh, well, let's keep on our journey here back towards where we're currently sitting. And there is, if we go down to, again, here's another ice arena we're going to talk about. And this is in the Albertville area, St. Michael, Albertville. And what's the deal with this?
I don't know. We're getting this from patch.com. The head of the title is cost estimates in for a new arena. And the cost estimates are a little hard to follow.
Okay.
When I read this, it's your typical government estimates and all that BS. The ice, they want new ice, which would allow all local hockey teams to practice within the community. It's nice to know the St. Michael Albertville School District is spending their money in the classroom. It's just nice to know that. Mm-hmm. The school board meshed with the hockey board, about this efforts here to this construction project. The cost estimates, the initial cost estimate came back. Now, I'm not sure if this is just for another sheet of ice or to add on to the building or whatever it is. The initial estimate was $4.9 million, followed by a scaled back estimate of $3.3. Now, this apparently cut amenities such as a 2-story entrance with additional concessions, shower facilities, storage, and office spaces. 500 people is what it would seat. And rinks built recently in Princeton and Forest Lake were more of the $2.5 million area. But apparently the big issue is that they are not being able to practice. And they have to go to St. Cloud or something to practice.
That's quite a drive from St. Michael, Albertville.
Yeah, apparently they just need ice is what the people are saying there. That kids as young as 11 years old are practicing till 10 o'clock on school nights to get ice time. So a sheet of ice is this much money. And so they're talking $3.3 million price tag. What do you bet? Now here's the other thing. With the cost service in mind, board members figured the annual debt service for St. Michael and Albertville would be approximately $340,000 per year to be financed over 20 years for a $3.3 million project. Now, Jay, I've done the math.
Yes.
And that per year is $6.8 million over the 20 years. So there's your real cost.
Wow.
Okay. The district is unable to contribute financially to this debt service without putting it on a levy and asking for additional votes for the project. The school board approved a joint resolution along with the cities to seek state assistance in the expansion via our levy limits, or our legislative leaders. So that's an interesting footnote to that. So anyhow, we got that going on too out there in St. Michael. Now we got an interesting story here.
Yeah.
Where we're sitting.
Yes, we do.
So you want a sheet of ice out there in St. Michael? Well, no. We got something even worse going on right here in the city we're sitting in.
Yes. So that would be St. Louis Park. Our favorite, Mayor Jake Spano, another one of our favorites. Oh, this is crazy, and we want to thank our friends over at Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus,
Yes.
and Rob Dorr.
Rob, in particular, for being on top of this.
Yeah, and I know that when Eden Prairie was going through their issue, I talked to Rob, and he had worked with Brad Aho out there, and I know there wasn't a lot they could do because it ended up being 4-1. But
I think it did bring a lot of focus on Eden Prairie. It might have stopped some other cities from doing this.
And the mayor isn't running again.
So, of course, they can vote for whatever they want. They don't have to go back to the people.
Right. But Brad Aho is running for mayor, which would be the clear choice out there, and running against Ron Case, who is the one that said, oh, well, people who like guns have a visceral reaction when they see a big guns sign, or people who don't like guns have a visceral reaction when they see.
Well, that just makes the case to get rid of him.
Yeah, exactly. You're an idiot. So it's like, I guess I said that publicly. It's out there.
I mean,
but
Jay, it's like how do we define an assault rifle in this country? It's a gun that looks scary.
Right.
An assault rifle doesn't exist. Your average handgun is a semi-automatic.
Yeah.
You don't eject a shell. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
it does it for you.
My 22 is a semi-automatic.
Exactly. 9mm can be semi-automatics.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's
my 22 long rifle.
But if you
real
go,
scary.
Yeah. If you go back to the Brady bill, I mean, in the 90s, assault weapons are basically guns that look scary.
Yeah.
And that's the definition. Your average person couldn't look at a weapon and tell you if it's an assault rifle or not.
No,
it's a made-up term.
And I've seen these things where it's like, which gun is the assault rifle? And they pick the one that's like the BB gun that looks like something else, and it's
ridiculous.
But so down in Eden Prairie, I mean, you got either the guy that stood up for the firearms dealers, or you have the guy that said, oh, people either get scared or really excited when they see big gun for sale signs, and we gotta remove that threat. So
I'm excited.
Yeah.
How about the fat kid who drives by McDonald's and gets excited? Should we ban that too? Gets diabetes or something?
Oh boy. Yeah. So anyways, the gun issue, we've been talking about this for a while. The whole preemption, where cities have felt like they need to step up and take charge where they feel the state or the federal government isn't doing it. And the state is trying to say, no, you can't cross these lines, and they're still pushing it. In fact, we had the U.S. Conference of Mayors, which held a convention or a
powwow, whatever you want to call it. Sure, at our expense.
Right. Earlier this year, and they had a bunch of people from the Parkland group, including David Hogg, came out. Nancy Tyra Lukens, the current mayor of Eden Prairie, went to that. I know there were other mayors around here that went to that as well, in which it was said and they came away with the idea that people in city government just have to do something.
Right. It's the whole do something mentality.
And I know in Golden Valley they're looking at putting together, and we reported on this, at least some sort of education program, whatever that
I think they've backed off going as far as Eden Prairie. Yeah. But I think what they're going to do is incrementally go after this and not try to tackle it at once.
Right. But then we have St. Louis Park, which is another animal altogether, and you can count on them to go as far to the side of being ridiculous as possible.
Jake the Snake is the mayor.
Yeah.
He is a snake, if I've ever seen one. The Deputy Secretary of State of Minnesota, which is a total conflict of interest.
Yes, it is. We've covered that on a previous issue.
His boss is his
episode
former state representative.
Yeah. So for now, well, we'll tell what happened before we tell what the decision was. This is not an issue at the city council yet, but this either came from the city council and or staff to their planning commission.
Both.
Yes. So they're trying to, according to this little blurb we got, the St. Louis Park City Council is trying to ramrod through a plan to adopt a number of anti-gun measures in order to do something about school shootings. So again, it's that we've got to do something. The local level people have to do something. So they have. I don't know what the other measures are. That's something hopefully we will find out for you before.
Yeah, and my guess is the way this went, the Planning Commission might not be taking it up anymore.
That's true.
It's possible that the council will just act.
It'll just be in their consent agenda like everything else.
Or whatever. I mean, they'll go to their work session. They'll already have their minds made up and whatever else.
So what they wanted to do for this first proposed solution was to ban all home-based federal firearms dealers. Now, what that means is that if you have an FFL license, a federal firearms dealer license, to be able to sell guns, and you do it out of your home, it's a home-based business for you. You have
do
the
it
license,
on the side, whatever.
Which means if you're FFL licensed, you're doing the background checks and all of that. It's
not different than going to a gun shop. You just don't have the shop.
Right. The shop is your living room or your basement or your den or whatever.
Garage. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but you've got the license. You're doing the background checks.
And the background checks have been done on you. I mean, we should mention that getting that license is it's not like you walk in there and fill something out. Here you go. That's not
right.
That's not how you get a gun dealer's license. It's not easy to get.
No, they don't just give them to anybody. Let me tell you that.
But I mean, let me ask a question here just to start. If I've got a license, let's say I'm a licensed electrician.
Yes.
I'm a licensed tree trimmer. I'm a licensed mechanic. Can the city ban me from doing business? I mean, I'm just asking the question generally speaking because
they do.
I mean, if I'm a mechanic
and
I'm licensed by the state or the federal government and I want to work part-time out of my driveway, can the city come along and ban me from doing that?
Well, it depends. If they require a license at the city level for you to operate, then I guess they think they can. You know, it's like if you have a tree trimming business and you're not licensed to trim trees in that city, they can shut you down.
But why do I need, if I'm licensed to do it in the state, why do I need to go around to every city and get a license too?
Well, yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, and that's my point.
Yeah.
They can.
And how many people don't do it?
Shouldn't be able to.
How many people don't do it? You know what I mean? I mean, how is this enforced? What are you going to do? Drive around the city and see if somebody's trimming trees and go like the DNR and grab my live well? I mean, what? It's just silly. I mean, how many licenses do you need? And remember, every license that somebody has to get is a cost that's passed off onto the customer.
That's true.
You know, if I've already got a tax ID from the federal government, which is not free, one from the state government, which is also not free, do I have to go around to every single business, every city I'm doing business in and get a license there? But I'm just thinking, think about how the power these cities have, technically. If they want to shut down anything.
Yes.
They can shut down anything. If we let them shut down this, what's to go after any business they don't like? And I'm not talking about X-rated movies here. I'm not talking about there are some things where I think an argument can be made, whether that's, I mean, I don't want to go down that road, but I mean, but if somebody wants to take a legal product and get a license to deal it from somebody, federal government, state government, why can the city come along and just take it away?
Yeah, exactly.
And how many people are going to do it anyway?
And that's the thing. I mean, we're talking, this is a federal firearms license. Federal firearms license. And the city thinks that they can overrule the federal government, who has said you are ready to go to sell.
Well, here's the Planning Commission. They discussed this proposed ordinance in a public hearing. Apparently, the meeting didn't go too well for you gun control people. Here's a few of the comments that were made by some of the commissioners. Quote, "I will sell my house and move if this ordinance is passed."
Oh, wait. You kind of skated past that. I just want to say these are comments made by the commissioners on the Planning Commission.
Right. These are not comments made by people in the audience or anything like that.
Commence.
I do think this is discriminatory. Feelings have nothing to do with facts. What problem are we trying to solve? Any studies that support this move? Is there an issue that needs to be addressed? Boy, it sounds like they're not too happy.
And
with
this
proposal.
is St. Louis Park. I mean, you can pretty much pass anything in this city.
And I'm sure half these people are friends of Mayor Spano because he seems to control everything there. Now, at the end of the meeting, this is what concerns me.
Yes.
Okay. At the end of the meeting, the Planning Commission voted to table the proposed ordinance.
And so in government speak, what that means is they're just not going to act on it for now.
Right. What it means is, this is my guess, either A, the council's going to take it up themselves without a recommendation from the Planning Commission, because I think if the commission voted this down, for now it might not go anywhere. Or B, look for this. This is really sneaky. Look for the people who said these things to not be reappointed or something to the Planning Commission, and look for more favorable people to be. Because the council wants cover here.
Right.
My guess as to why this went to the Planning Commission is that the council wants another group to give this a blessing before they do.
Right.
So they have that, well, the Planning Commission looked at it and blah, 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 and not enough citizens showed up or some crap like, the usual crap that they give you, and use that as cover for them. So I don't think this is going to go anywhere for the moment, but what do you want to bet? I'm going to predict within 3 to 6 months, you see this either passed by the council anyway, or you see commissioners replaced, or you see an ordinance maybe not so strong here. A moratorium. We'll put a moratorium and we'll study it for 2 years, which is codes words for we can't pass it now, but 2 years from now we're going to try to.
Yeah.
So what do you want to bet? I'm gonna guess something of that nature happens, because Mayor Spano is such an egomaniac. He's not going to walk away with egg on his face here. He's going to get those liberal credentials going, because we all know he has higher office ambitions. So to me, I think that's where this is headed. So to call this a victory is, it is in some way, but it's a victory. But it's like winning Game 1 of the World Series. There's still 6 games to go. I mean, that's kind of how I see this quote unquote victory. So, but I mean, and again, call and email these representatives and let you know that they have a little template that and they make very good points. I mean, I have to hand it to Rob, because he really does put the issues very simply. Like, one of the things is home-based firearms dealers follow the same laws and background checks that every law has to follow. Gun dealers, legal gun dealers, aren't responsible for school shootings, and that's true. I mean, it totally isn't. A law-abiding gun owner who lives, works, shops, or visits St. Louis Park, why are they treated differently than if they're in another city? I mean, they're compelling arguments to make, and I don't really who knows what the response is going to be, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, I mean, St. Louis Park really is no friend of freedom.
They are maybe the only, maybe there's about 3 other cities maybe they're to the right of in this state. So not too many. They've got their GARE, they've got their climate change plan, they've got ranked choice voting, it's Tobacco 21. It's as hopeless there as pretty much anywhere else. So I'll take a small victory. But like I said, this is Game 1 of the World Series here.
Right.
The other team maybe's got, Verlander or Kershaw pitching in the next game. Just keep that in mind here, that this is a long haul. And this is something that's going to have to be fought and fought and fought. All they got to do is pass this once. We got to beat it every single time.
That's right.
So, as soon as...
Yeah, it's not a best out of 3 or best out of 5. It's
it's like we got to be on it. We got to defeat it every time. So hopefully this stays in the gutter. But my guess is that either they're gonna scale this back, or they're going to pass it anyway when they think it's politically advantageous to do it.
Well, and like I've said in the past, I mean, when you look back at the Tobacco 21 issue, you look back at some of the other stuff that's happened in St. Louis Park, nobody has shown up from the community to fight these things. They just let it go, and so hopefully with an issue like this, they will be a little more on it.
Well, and I think it's going to be tough with odd-year elections, with ranked choice voting. It's a tough city to
that's true
to affect. Unfortunately,
yeah,
it's a city that needs a lot of help.
We've talked about before, odd-year elections. You have such a small percentage of people that come out to vote, and because of that, then it makes it a lot easier for the same people to get elected and reelected.
Yeah, it's no coincidence that it's largely the same people. But my guess is there's a huge majority that is ready to do this here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So what do you do about this? I mean, you got all these issues that we talked about today, and new taxes going in. You've got special sales taxes going in. You're trying to restrict firearms dealers from selling out of their home. All of this stuff where they're coming after just basic principles of being able to, whether it's make a living or keep the money you make when you make a living. What do we do? And you look at local elections, and you gotta. The first thing is you gotta realize that they matter, and it's a lot harder to do your homework on a lot of these people because they kind of are allowed to operate in darkness. They have their council meetings, or their county commission meetings or whatever, which are usually televised, but all the work sessions, any kind of other things they sit in, they don't know what they do.
They won't be invited on the cable news programs or the Sunday shows.
Right, exactly. So it's imperative that you're involved, and once you find somebody, help them out. I mean, whether they need help dropping lit or whether they need help throwing an event for them so they can raise some money, whether they at the local level need so much help, and it's one thing to throw a Trump bumper sticker on your car. It's another thing to actually take time
caucus once every 4 years.
Yeah, that doesn't accomplish a whole heck of a lot.
My favorite are the people who go to the same Tea Party meeting every time, once a month, and it's great. But if you're not taking anything home with you, if you're not doing your homework, ultimately you're just a person who shows up for a free meal. Well, whatever. I mean, I'm not ripping them.
Right.
Just saying, you got to take something from that and say to yourself, okay, what do we do with the information I got?
Well,
I'm not home screaming at the TV. I'm not getting in arguments on Facebook. I'm doing something else with it.
Right.
So,
and that's why we started Team 20K, Andrew.
That's why? Okay.
We took a look around the state, and we figure there's at least 30,000 different appointed and elected positions at the local level, and we also know that if we have at least 20,000 of those in like-minded hands, that we will be able to make the kind of decisions that will reverse the progressive tide in this state. And maybe Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Duluth are a lost cause. If you live there, I would still fight for those things, but there's a lot of territory outside those three cities, and we can make a change.
Hey, 850 other cities, 1,700 townships.
Yep.
Hundreds of school districts, 87 counties. Okay, we'll get rid of Hennepin, Ramsey, and St. Louis. That's 84 counties. That's still a lot.
Well, and I think St. Louis. I mean,
there's
a look
districts.
at St. Louis.
Chris Dahlberg, who's a friend of ours, was commissioner up there. Obviously Jeff Johnson in Hennepin County. There are positions to win in those areas too.
Pete Stauber is
came up that way too.
Yeah.
And Pete Stauber, I think, is the clear favorite in the 8th. I think he's going to win by a wide margin. But my predictions haven't been too good lately, so I'm not going to jinx Pete. So.
Yeah, that might be a safe one to get you back on track. But so.
And Tom Emmer will win too. There, I'll go 2 for 2.
Wow, you're really reaching.
Yeah, I know. He won what by 31 last time. I'm reaching.
It's time for you to join Team 20K. It's time for you to get into the game. It's one thing to watch from the sidelines and critique what's going on. It's another thing to be involved, and it's easier than you think. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier than you think. So it's important that you get on these advisory commissions. It's important that if you feel the itch to run for an office, that you do it. It is important because that is where we begin to make changes. And it's not going to take that many of us. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we think we're going to be using all of our resources to get people onto these commissions and get people elected. No, I mean, it's really a pretty small percentage of conservatives across the state. And so
you mentioned 20,000. President Trump got 1.3 million votes in Minnesota. Jeff Johnson got nearly 1 million. So when you put it in those, I think you got 900,000 something.
Yes.
When you put it in those terms, okay, 20,000 is not that much out of 1.3 million.
No, it's really not.
Yeah, so, if 1 out of 100 people who voted for the president serve in some capacity, 1 out of 75 or whatever it is who voted for Commissioner Johnson. So it's not, it's not, like you mentioned, the commission's once a month. If you're not interested in that, there are things like your local Lions Club. If you're a veteran or a former member of the armed forces, serve in your Legion or your VFW, you can still volunteer there. You just can't be a member. I volunteered at the Crystal VFW my whole life, and my father's a member, and I'm not. There's Rotary clubs. There's neighborhood leads on
Little League.
Things like Next Door, Little League. There's fundraisers for schools and things like that people can volunteer for. So, don't think that you're limited just to working in government.
No, and those things all make your community better, and it is important. That is a great way to make your community better.
But maybe that's where somebody starts. I mean,
if
you're not ready to serve on a charter commission or a planning commission, maybe you start smaller than that. But you got to have your eye on the prize, and the eye on the prize is the 20K goal.
Right, and because that's where policy decisions are
Met
made.
Council's got their 2040 plan. Community Solutions has got their 2040 plan. Actually, our plan, we want implemented even faster. But we don't have grant money to make it happen.
Well,
okay, we don't have property
taxing authority.
Revenue. We don't have property tax revenue coming in. So,
Team
Team 20K, baby.
Yep, that's right. So we talk about this, though, because it's important. And so you see these things that are happening all over the state. We talk about them so that you see that they are happening all over the state. And so if you're interested in this at all, if you want to get on a commission, it's a little late now to run for an office. Do you want to step up and help somebody run for an office, or you're currently running for an office, or you see screwy things happening in your city, county, school, district that you'd like us to talk about, get a hold of us. You can do that at COMMsolutionsMN@gmail.com. That is COMMsolutionsMN@gmail.com. Email us. We will get back in touch with you. And also, if you like what you hear, share it. Rate this podcast because that is the way that the word is going to get out. By you sharing it, by you rating it, that is going to make all the difference in us being able to get our message to a wider audience. And by doing that, we begin to affect change. We begin to get our message out there, and that only helps you wherever you live, whether that's Becker or whether that is in Wadena, or whether that is in Ogilvie, or whether that is in, well, not Minneapolis, everywhere else.
No, definitely
Sorry.
not. Definitely not Minneapolis.
Don't mean to keep ripping on Minneapolis. I'll have to throw
They earn it.
St. Louis Park in next time. Yeah, they do. All right, so get a hold of us, commsolutionsmn@gmail.com, and we're going to do this all over again next week. It is going to be a good time. I'm ready for it. Hopefully you're doing your homework, and you all will be ready for it, because we love you, Minnesota. Now it's your turn to get to work.
If I get too caught up